Welcome back, everyone. It's another week of Film Club. It's me and my buddy Groot here. I'm Carson Higgins, and we watched a great movie this week. I don't know if you got a chance to check out Portrait of Jason, but it is, to quote Ingmar Bergman, let me pick that name up. It's the most extraordinary film I've seen in my life. That's a Bergman quote about Shirley Clarke's 1967 film, Portrait of Jason. And I gotta say, it didn't feel like I didn't feel like I watched a movie last night. I feel like I was introduced to someone. I feel like I went to a party and spent about 2 hours with someone who I now call a friend, Jason Holliday. I got to just tell you a little bit. I didn't know of this film. I'd never really heard of it, but Jeremy O'Harris, what's up, man? I saw so he's the playwright who is a Tony nominated playwright for a Broadway play called Slave Play. I saw a tweet of his recently where he, maybe a couple months ago, he had said that he was going to pay for anybody who any black people who wanted to learn about film, who wanted a Criterion subscription. He was gonna like pay for the first 10 people to ask him or something. I don't know. Ask him. You could probably scroll down through his Twitter. Anyway, uh, someone wrote on there, "I love the Criterion Channel. Have you seen Portrait of Jason?" And he said something along the lines of like, "It's why I got Criterion. It's what I'm watching right now." And I was like, "Oh, I should look into this movie. I've never heard of it." And sure enough, I'd seen the picture as I scroll through the titles before, and it's kind of an inviting image. You just see this jovial guy in a, I don't remember if he's wearing the boa in the photo on Criterion or not, but it just looks like someone that you kind of want to go meet. And yeah, this film, I was sitting there watching it, and I was like, this is from 1967, and it really feels like it could have been filmed last night. Yeah, there's some vernacular, I guess, that kind of gives away the time, but the feel of it, and even a lot of the things that he does say, feel very current. Like he's just a guy talking. And so I realized that it's kind of like the most timeless movie ever, at least so far. I mean, we haven't gotten far enough away as a society from talking like this. So I just was very fascinated by the whole thing. It starts off, he's saying, "I'm Jason Holliday, I'm Jason Holliday," and he laughs and he says, "I'm Aaron Payne," and then it goes out of focus, and I was like, "Oh man, Shirley Clarke is a pretty cool lady." uh, I don't know her. I haven't seen her other films. Perhaps you've seen her first film, The Connection, or I guess her, if not Portrait of Jason, maybe The Cool World is perhaps her most famous film. But she is an experimental indie filmmaker who was making most of her films. It looks like in the '60s, and then she went on to be a professor at UCLA, and she did all kinds of things that I didn't really do a whole lot of research about her, to be honest. I will say watching this movie made me so curious. I really look forward to watching The Connection and The Cool World. But in just a little Wikipedia search, I saw that she was a modern dancer, a Martha Graham student, and was very into dance. And some of her early short films are kind of about dance and featured dancing. And then she kind of moved into this filmmaking path, uh, where look her up, man, because I'm curious to find out more about Shirley Clarke. I want to watch these other two movies, but the things that she did with this. So if you haven't watched it, it's just Jason on screen. He's the only person you see the entire film. We do hear Shirley talking a couple times. We do hear one or two other film crew members talking. Even later in the film, which we'll get into, there's a little bit of a back and forth between someone named Carl and Jason. But for the most part, we're just watching this one dude. And it's kind of billed as a documentary, but it really feels like a YouTube channel. Like it feels like some guy's YouTube channel, or feels like a reality show. It feels less interview and more performative, and yet it feels very truthful. So it's a true telling of a very performative person. And yes, he's a drunk and he's a hustler, and so if you don't know what that is, he was a hooker, and but he has this killer sense of humor. Uh, he's clearly gone through a lot, but he has a very kind of cool outlook on the suffering he has gone through in his life, and he kind of is able to shrug it off. You can tell that it hurts him, but it's just fascinating how it was a 12-hour shoot at the Hotel Chelsea. So if you've never been to New York, it's still there, the Hotel Chelsea, and I guess Shirley Clarke was living there. Famous hangout of like Bob Dylan, and it was a very cool place to be in the 60s and late mid 50s, I guess. I don't know. The whole Beat generation, it was all part of that. But so for a 12-hour chunk from 9 p.m. until 9 in the morning, they just filmed and interviewed Jason. And I I couldn't stop thinking while I was watching it about two things. Um, One is that we have this kind of in and out of focus element. Sometimes you can't see him, and sometimes you can, and it is kind of an interesting way of showing that like we aren't ever really clear about what's real, what's fake, but it's not fake in like the if you saw the Joaquin Phoenix "I'm Still Here" documentary, like that was a character that Joaquin Phoenix was playing and using his own persona to manipulate the audience and the other people that wind up in the film. And so it is its own type of, I guess, cinema verite. I'm not a scholar, but so it's not quite that, because it's more that they found someone as a subject that is a little bit more cryptic and mysterious and troubling, and you can't really trust this guy sometimes. He's the first to tell you not to trust him. Um, but you do. I don't get the sense that he's like lying throughout the film. I mean, he name drops a couple of people that he knows. He tells stories about when he was a houseboy for certain people, and it all seems like he's just talking about his life, and I very much think he is. But there's also this thing happening where sometimes the reel runs out. So then, like, the screen will cut to black, the audio's still going. The first time that happens, you even hear Shirley say, "Keep the audio rolling," and it's like they're putting in more film, I guess. And this technique winds up kind of creating the illusion that it's just one hanging out session of an hour and 47 minutes of no cutting. Um, which it's not that, but the way that the audio is woven in with these different cut moments over a 12-hour period, I thought was just very, very smart. Um, a really cool way to go about doing that. Yeah, I don't really. It's kind of a hard movie to critique, because I mean it's like it's not a. I guess you could talk about kind of what I've already been discussing, but like I mentioned at the beginning, it really feels more like you're meeting this person, Jason Holliday, and um, someone who just is so ahead of their own time. It's really kind of bizarre. Jason Holliday would be a humongous personality on social media and YouTube and things like that today. But this person in 1967 had none of that. And so his big aspirations was he was trying to do this cabaret act, which we do get to see a little bit of, and he's fucking great. He sings at one point, and I kind of wasn't expecting him to be good, sadly. Uh, but then I was really kind of taken aback that I was like, "Oh, dude, I'd love to see your cabaret show. Like, you would crush it in the era of RuPaul's Drag Race and just I, if you haven't watched the film, you got to sit and just hang out with Jason, because it also. I was thinking too about how the title alone, Portrait of Jason. When you think of a portrait, like let's take the Mona Lisa for example. She is a mysterious picture person, and we have looked at her and her smile and her mystery for hundreds of years. And it's kind of amazing that in the medium of film, instead of just having to have this painted portrait where the artist has found a subject that for whatever reason they are drawn to show. They want to showcase this person, because this is the thing with artists and their subjects that I think is so cool. Uh, like, other people are the most fascinating thing to people. If you were to be in a room with like a flower, and this is weird, but like if you were in a room with a flower and a sunset and another person, you would be most curious about the other person in the room. Like, no matter how miraculous something is that you're seeing, the stars at night or whatever, they're not as interesting as another person. So artists and their subject, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, so pardon me, but I follow me if you can. And the notion that we have this hour and 47-minute time capsule with Jason, like, I wish everyone had an opportunity to have one of these of themselves, where, once we're gone and we're dead, if someone can pop on a video like this and hang out with you for 2 hours, basically, because Jason's just the life of the party. He's the guy where if you were to go to a party and find the corner where people are laughing and talking, and just Jason's holding court and everyone's on every word that he's saying, that's what this kind of feels like. There is the added element of kind of the exploitative wondering of like, well, is this good of Shirley to be doing to Jason? It does feel sometimes like he's being taken advantage of, and yet it also feels like he's taking advantage of her. And he's even been quoted sort of saying something along those lines of like, I think we're pretty even, because at the end of the day, he comes off great, flawed, but great. And if anything, Shirley and Carl and Richard or whoever else is in there, they're the ones who kind of come off a little, what the fuck, man? Even though, because Jason's being honest. He'll tell you about horrible things that he's done with things that have happened to him, but he owns it all. And that's kind of why, like I said at the beginning, it feels like this could have been filmed last night, because it's just so true. It's so real. So that's enough. You need to watch it. You need to meet Jason yourself and just hang out with him, because that's really what this movie is all about. It's like Bergman said, it's the most extraordinary film I've ever seen in my life, in its own special way. I agree with him. So yeah, that was our film for the week. Groot and I loved it. I hope you get a chance to check it out, and if you did check it out, I hope you loved it too. We'll have another pick for you tomorrow. Go ahead and follow us at Filmstruck Film Club on Facebook and Instagram. Like and comment and subscribe on the YouTubes, and take care of yourselves. And if you find good movies, especially some older ones, share them. Tell everyone you know. Let people find stuff through you. That's all I'm trying to do over here. Is I'm putting on movies that seem interesting to me, and trying to find people that want to talk about them, because god damn it, I love it. But yeah, good hanging out with you guys. I'll catch you later.